Chilly here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is Sol Hour Saturn Day. Sun is in the 8th house, 18 degrees, applying to oppose Chiron and Aries. Ascendant is 18 degrees, Pisces, separating from Rahu. And the midheaven is 22 in Sagittarius. Moon is 19 degrees Gemini, and Mercury 7 degrees Scorpio. Now, with the ceasefire / ending of the war, people declared the end of the war in the Israel-Palestine region. I don't know. First of all, let's check where the kidnapped people at, because everybody is happy and so on and so forth. For me, I'm this type of person that has this, very practical, pragmatic approach. Um, so, um, but I saw one lovely story, and this is the story of Zaatar. It is okay. Rafiach passage will open on Tuesday. Oh, Vitkov is arriving in Israel, so if you have anybody around Tel Aviv, tell them to stay safe, because there can be bombings. Kikar HaChatufim is not Kikar Rabin, which was Kikar Malchei Israel, which was where Rabin was assassinated. And I'm like, Lilith is 22ing. If anybody gets assassinated today, maybe he was on Epstein list. Anyway, yeah. Okay, where are the kidnapped people? Oh, somebody threw a bomb to pass it to IDF, towards IDF in Jenin, and got shot dead. So, like I said, the war is over. And Hamas says that Israel was changing the list of security prisoners that will be released in a sneaky way. So, as usual, things go weird. Israel refused to release two senior Azati medical doctors. There is a shark. On the shore, I don't see any kidnapped people so far. And now, of course, IDF is busy in South Lebanon, because if we're fighting everybody, then okay, not much, no kidnapped people yet, but okay, there is this episode by TRT World about Zaatar, and you can watch the episode on YouTube. However, I thought that as an aromatherapist, I'm going to discuss that, because the herb Zaatar, wild thyme, first of all, it is, when you roast that, it's one of the things I remember that I ate. It's a biblical herb. And when you roast the natural Zaatar, put some salt, it is something so delicious that I ate it one time and I still remember it to this day. But what Israel did is something that reminds me a lot of what John D. Rockefeller, when he began being John D. Rockefeller, he basically patented nature and forbade people to use nature. So he abolished like aromatherapy, astrology, all these things, unless of course they're working for Rockefeller, um, which I am not. I believe that they can benefit from my broadcast because I speak my mind, and this is how it should be, because when freedom of speech is allowed, then they can get information for free. But when freedom of, and by the way, when they begin to have astrologers like in the service of, the astrologers mislead them. I see that happening. Anyway, it's the thing. If you keep human rights, you will have good information. If you don't keep human rights, you will not have good information. That is very easy. Because if you don't keep human rights, you're basically in a treason cult. Treason cult never gives the full picture because they even never know the full picture. that's what's up. And so now here's the thing. Zaatar was forbidden by Israel to pick under the guise of protected nature. Now Zaatar is a herb. It's a purifying herb. We might take a look at the qualities of wild thyme. So wild thyme, with H, benefits. So some people drink that in tea, some add it to food or salads. Very tasty herb. Antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, supports cardiovascular and metabolic health, helps with respiratory and cough and bronchitis issues. By the way, during COVID, I drank a lot of Zaatar tea. While it's considered safe, yes, has flavonoids, vitamin C, antioxidants, protect from cell damage by fighting free radicals. Thymol is one of those things that kill everything. Thymol and carvacol help reduce inflammation throughout the body. Regulate lipid metabolism, low cholesterol, and anti-diabetic properties. Regulating, managing blood pressure and blood sugar. And again, for that, people would need to go off the Coumadin if they take that. Antibacterial, good for perhaps useful for IBS. Antimicrobial, protect against harmful gut bacteria, and can have spasmolytic effect, relaxes digestive tract muscles to relieve cramping. So it's good for ladies on their moon days or men with wombs on their moon days. Okay, I'm recording. Thanks. Antioxidant, antibacterial, helps reduce skin inflammation and oxidative stress. So, see, might not be safe. My prediction is not safe for pregnancy because it is evacuating, it's purifying. Anything that detoxifies is not something we have around conception, child caring, and childbirth. And so, yes, and for those that want to have the anti-activity, then those herbs may assist. Now, this herb was not allowed for Palestinians to pick. But here is the thing. Palestinians picked it as resistance symbol because that's natural herb for their tradition, and they used it for tea, for medicine, in food, let food be their medicine and so on. And for the Israelis, they wanted to brand it, they wanted to do John D. Rockefeller on it. And it might be even coming from the Rockefellers. So this is something that should be of interest to the whole world, because when a move like that is done, it's not just going to be done in Palestine, it's also going to be done for the people. And basically it's about patenting herbs. When I studied philosophy of medicine, and I studied both the Q1 papers for herbal medicine and for conventional medicine, and sometimes they would have weird arguments, like for the herbal, neither in anesthesia, they're like, how many mice are in this human body, and that's how you computate. And you hope for good. Some people die, some people leave, some people have not enough. and so, and but when it's the herbal medicine, they don't know the dosages. How are they going to? Uh, Now, yes, dosage is very important, but here's the thing. Um, there was another question, which, if they found the herb to be useful, there was the fear that they would patent the herb, and people won't be able to use that, but only as processed medicine, which loses its effectivity and basically becomes, you know, basically becomes placebo. That being said, placebo for people that use that cognitively, consciously, can be helpful. Um, Now, when something like that happens in a territory, then for Palestinians, it's a symbol of resistance for Israeli occupation. Basically, they're not fighting Israeli occupation, they're fighting the same John D. Rockefeller that patented the herbs. And this is why each and every one of us should be concerned, because this is our can still work that are not completely targeted individual, taking your taxes, putting them in classified projects that are basically targeting individuals to take their accessibility to resources. Now, it's very dumb, because what it's doing is basically depriving us from resources altogether. Yes, thank you. And the belief that they can preserve some of the good stuff and not some of the other stuff, well, we saw that if there is nuclear holocaust, people will die from hunger miles and miles and miles and kilometers and countries away. And that's just, if we take a look at the Kabbalah esoterics, and the part in the Kabbalah esoterics that talks about, I'm not a great, yes, I never studied that in depth, which means I never raped babies to cameras and stuff like that. Also not to cameras, and I think there is an entire, that is actually very verifiable. And so people are like, what about AI? That probably is verifiable as well, but because they would have frequencies and history to the file and so on. And by now, there really is nothing that is not seen. And so the thing is that, yeah, that's what it takes, what people think, and. And so what is happening basically is that the ability to do medicine by growing a plant, harvesting a plant, using the plant, is under threat. And so this Zaatar demonstrates the quality about nature. And the quality, and this is, I talked about the Kabbalah, because they have this part where they say the 72 faces of God, the name of God. Basically, they're supposed to be playing the role of God, and the Satanists, whatever, and so they're supposed to be playing the role of God, and there's tree of life, tree of death, and they're supposed to be doing the best of the best things and the worst of the worst things. Supposedly to have like the wisdom that they will never incarnate anymore and blah blah blah. Although some of them do want to reincarnate as how does Trudy call it, clone of the dead? I wonder if they did like the experiment where they had a natural birth child and they tried to summon a consciousness into that child, because that would explain a lot of stuff, is what I'm saying. But also for the people that were cloned, perhaps they have like memories from previous lives or something like that. That like they have other troubles to worry about. But it's just like scientifically speaking, science, but benevolent, and so um, and so here's the thing. This type of activity is basically, we want to believe that when we do good, what is the power of the good is overwhelming with the power of the bad. But that has its limits. But also, if you drop an A-bomb, an entire place go, into famine, then the fact that you try to reforest Sahara is a bit, okay, it's cool. And this is also why it was difficult to have this Zaatar as symbol of resistance. So Zaatar is a wild time, spiritual is about courage, and we can try to do, I will do with you what I will do for every herb that I studied, which is wild time, spiritual benefits or properties. Very likely purifying from bad energy, magical uses of time. By Curious Cauldron, this nice cat, black cat here. So, this propagation, planting, watering. Normally I would go over all of that because all of those upbringing of the time conditions are telling me about the properties of the time. Yes, culinary uses and aromatic uses. Thyme essential oils, that's my field, extracted from leaves through steam distillation, used as warm herbaceous scent to have therapeutic effects such as relaxing, mental clarity. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritties. What are the what witchcraft are done with time? Come on. Medicinal uses. So we had all the things we talked about before, and let's go to the spiritual, magical. So first of all, Venus, Yin. I said what I said, and to you I haven't said it yet. So wait. Okay, I have two cats. It's said to be both water and air. Powers: courage, fairy sight, healing, health, love, psychic powers, protection and purification. Planet Venus. And this is where purification and cleansing was used by Egyptians to embleming the dead, and basically passage from it. Basically, one of the herbs that is also can be associated with Pluto, because the anything we would use on the dead is basically for a clear passage. So it can also be mercurial. There's a mix in esoterics between Mercury and Venus. By the way, both are associated with Lucifer, the light bringer, but not when I talk about. I don't mean the ritual satanic abuse that they do. That they do with everything, with Satan, with Venus, with Jesus, with Beta with everything, and so and over nothing, and believed to have protective qualities. Mercury is just a passage, okay? It's a door between the living and the dead, and so on and so forth. Alchemy, transmutation, word of evil spirits, word of negative influence, being burned to fumigate or to get rid of space of restless ghosts. And courage and strength. Time, anything time is courage and strength. Also speaking. Okay, sweet time is speech. Never give your child sweet time before bed, because they will begin to spill out. But if you want to speak with your child, this tip I got from my teacher, not the teacher that I tortured when she got the house, another teacher, the first course teacher, and she said, if you have a child that, let's say, you want to talk about them, but they don't speak, or what happens in school and something like that, you let them smell sweet time. Suddenly they begin to spill everything. But then you have to allow them, okay, you have to treat their testimony, you have to believe them, you have to, allow them for the place to speak and so on. And so time is associated with courage. It was used as emblem of bravery for ladies to embroider a bee hovering over a spring of time, or scarves they presented to their knights. So when a woman is greeting a man that is coming from the fight, of course the Templars were also knights. So uh, healing spells. And look, Venus is on Al-Qaid when I talk about this. Used to enhance energy of herbal remedies or promote overall well-being. Love and romance. Love spells to attract, strengthen relationship, or bring about positive energies related to love. Always with love spells, never do on specific person. Always do to bring love energies. Okay, because we don't touch on another person's sovereignty. Clairvoyance and psychic abilities. Time is thought to enhance clairvoyant abilities, psychic insight. Practitioners use it in rituals, to aid in divination, practices, or meditation. And inviting fairies. Sleep and dreams, enhancing vivid dreams, attracting good luck, memory and focus, and spiritual cleansing, harmony and balance. Now, why did Palestinians were in this in-between stage where Zaatar was a symbol of resistance, but they still had to resist the occupation? And here's the thing. Zaatar is associated with Venus and Yin. And any indigenous tribe that would harvest on Zaatar, they would have to purify the lineage, the community, and their relations from any type of spells, witchcraft, traditions, or costumes that violate Venus. On a more holistic level, violation of Yin depletes Yin, okay? And then there's no place for Yang. There's nothing to hold the space for Yang, which means what we consider the feminine. For example, in a man, it would deplete their ability to sleep well, and then they would have more challenge to fight. Or they would become super aggressive and then would fall into stagnation. And so, inasmuch as Yin was honored, they could pick the herb as symbol of resistance and setting boundaries. But because the rituals of harvesting the feminine energy, the life energy from women, the witchcraft that the men do on women, particularly in Islam, particularly in those indigenous tribes, not just in Islam, okay, also in brotherhoods of Satan, whether it's Muslim or Judeo-Christian. And what happened is that because the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, the bankers that work with the Rockefellers, consolidate their wealth with the very same practices that were used in indigenous tribes to take the life energy from women, from children, for whether it's the father or the leader or the sheikh, then they had been met not with Israel, but it's under the guise of Israel, but with the very elite, the Rothschild and Rockefellers. Now, inasmuch as Palestinians begin to set boundary, they have access to this herb. But to use the herb, they needed to basically disobey the law. But because the law was, yes, illegal. But they could only be in this in-between stage because they would have to purify. And Zaatar is purifying of with everything yin, psychic abilities. Okay, it's a yin. It's being with the void. And when those psychic abilities were used to control, to manipulate, yes, even when woman, let's say woman wants a particular man, and she does spells that bring that and that man to me, okay, not good. She needs to go deeper into the essence of her desire, same with men, and say, let's say this man, what do you see in this man? What are the qualities that you want to bring into your life? And then keep that spell open, not with a name. Because maybe and even if she's in a relationship, because maybe this would be from her husband, maybe it would be from another man, and then she would need to have the authenticity and the social ability to say, okay, I see that this is something that I want. I see it from another man. Now, if my husband wakes up and I see it from him, is one thing. If not, maybe that thing is something that I manifested, that I important to me in my life, and maybe it means I will go with that man, not with that man, or non-monogamous, and so on and so forth. But the important thing is also herb of Pluto is authenticity. To go to the essence of desire and manifest from there. And the essence of desire is not about a name or a face. It is about the quality of love, attraction, desire, intimacy, eroticism. Now, for the women, if they would do love spells of particular person, or to keep my husband with me, not to cheat and not to that, they didn't go into the essence. That creates problem in accessing Zaatar, or any herb that they would use for that record. For the men, if they would use Zaatar to draw this woman to me, take her life energy, and create with her life energy for what the man wants. That means that this man, sooner or later, won't be able to access Zaatar. Now, who is the person that, because of them, they had to disobey the law and use it as a symbol of resistance? Rockefeller. And what is the wealth practices of those elites? Same as the indigenous. Taking from the womb, taking from the life energy, harvesting on the life energy, and trying to use it to create what they want by controlling for the feminine. And by the way, the women that still are in that frequency of trying to control the man, trying to have a love spell to this woman, they are on the frequency of either being with those that are doing war crimes or not having access to the resources. Because Zaatar purifies yin. Now, even without seeing that, I know that that's the situation because I know a little bit of the costumes, so I know that that's the situation. But then I see Zaatar, what does it rule? Venus. Water and air. Water is purifying of relational energy. Okay? Not to use care for control. Now, with all the intricacies around that, women sometimes try to castrate their child because they are afraid that their child will beat them like the father. And there are places where this actually happens. So we get castrated men that are with trauma. Men try to castrate their women because they used to marry a woman, child. They used to marry child or teenager, and then when the woman becomes child or teenager, or they have daughter, child or teenager, they so these are very Pluto deals with very challenging things, and Zaatar actually can assist, particularly the fumigation, okay, the smoke of Zaatar, tea of Zaatar, yes, with water, and essential oil can assist in purifying those things and having the courage. Look, I just talk about Zaatar, and look what I'm talking about. Okay, when we do aromatherapy, we also pay attention. I just named Zaatar wild thyme, and look what I'm talking about, and look the courage that I'm talking about. And so yes, and Venus is on Al-Qaid, which is to do with the Palestine chart, both the PLO and Hamas. Now, the herbs will always reveal. For example, when I studied, there was a herb of a tree, essential oil, named the Rosalina. Now, Rosalina is a small tree, and this is also of the leaves. I saw the leaves, the motif of leaves coming by a lot. And leaves of the plant, they're both protective and they are both breathing mechanism. They are sensitive to the sun. They adjust the plant and they are adjustable. So this is a small tree, and again, very good for relaxation, for the heart and so on, rejuvenation, the lungs, opening of heart chakra. But when I studied that, there was a ritual. One of the teachers in the second course, they let her buy a house, and then she had to participate in dark rituals. And to the whole class, she says that this is a tree that is modest, shrinked, tiny, and knows its place. You know what? When they said to black people these things in apartheid, and the funny thing, this lady is coming from Maghreb, okay, the ancestry. They said to people in apartheid, they said to people, to black people, to know their place. But also, I have to admit that the phrase "stay in your lane" is something that we hear from indigenous communities sometimes, and we can see how that invited that. Because these are for those who read frequencies and energy, these are frequencies of lower astral. For example, Mormons use humbling for women to bring them to lower astral frequencies and to traffic them. So you see, the herb will always reveal. Okay, it will always reveal things. Because it's basically a tree that's associated with heart chakra, security, acceptance of change, calms thoughts, calms worries, being at peace. So, what would be a high frequency to say modest, shrink, small? It would be this is a tree that is at peace. It brings peace. And it raises the frequency of the heart to remind us that what's more important is peace. Peace within oneself. Okay? It's not a sandalwood. Sandalwood is living on in certain agreement with other trees. So you see, same people are connected to the herbs. They know what I'm talking about. And they see when there's a dark ritual happening, they will see it. And so here, with Zaatar, is a purification of yin. Purification to do with Venus and Pluto. And those are also the things that stood in the face of Palestinian people, that brought colonialism, and still do, that bring Hamula wars. And prevent us, the whole world, from the gifts of the medicines that the Palestinians do have if they raise the frequency. If they transmute this lower astral and purify those costumes and purify those traditions. Now everybody holds these traditions and costumes so sacred. No, Pluto is telling us, change, rejuvenate what is set in stone. Look with new eyes on old costumes. This is something that creates rejuvenation. Because, and this is why for me, why did I have like toenail fungi and my teeth, and my wisdom teeth? I have my wisdom teeth, but it's something I say, maybe there's an Area 51 there. and, and this is because, look at what I'm talking about. Now, when I was afraid, Saturn teeth, to talk about these things, I created stagnation. Also, perhaps it was not time. But when I begin to talk about these things, I say, I can see why. Because to talk about these things is things that I felt in intuition, and it took me time to talk about these things. And just when I began to, when I did astrology, by the way, until I would get the certification for aromatherapy, then eventually I connected them, and um, so, but then there would be COVID, and then there would be this, and then there would be that, and so a lot about when we work with the herbs. This is why the English speakers, they call them plant teachers. Because when we work with the herbs, yes, it has certain effect on our lives. And time is one of those things that give us courage. To speak about. Because it's not about, oh, this is disrespectful, and let another Holocaust to be, and let another genocide to be, and let another colonialism to be. If we find, oh, this is not politically correct to say. Now, for Israel, it has to check with itself, because those, how does Trudy call them, Khazarian mafia? It doesn't matter what the name, but it acts like mafia. That is not going to bring medicine. And this means that when a person purchases Zaatar as this, give me a pharmaceutical name, they will purchase a processed, disintegrated type of powder that's stuffed into something that congeals, and and there would always be something that either neutralizes that, and something that can get one to be addicted. So this is something that concerns all of us. Just like, Nutella. It has nuts. Fantastic. I don't know how much sugar is it. It's not. It doesn't make it a healthy. Now, chocolate, cocoa is a superfood. Nuts is a great nourishing for the brain. Putting them together, amazing. Now, when you spill a half a pack of sugar into it, that's doesn't. Like, it's better for the children to eat something, yes, but that's and and this is also something we see in the tooth pasta. First, xanthan gum is marketed as the sugar that is good for you. Now, I don't know if it is the sugar that is good for you or. And if you say, okay, we have to look for research, you won't find it. Because the classified projects that your taxation go to, they go to good things and they also go to classified projects to assassinate the people that would show you the research. Countries that have big security. Countries that have big security um, budget have a lot of classified project budget, like United States. Are particularly susceptible to that. Yeah. So so now we got a little bit of a nice episode dedicated to the supposed ceasefire, um, supposed end of the war, from a perspective of a local Palestinian plant teacher named Zaatar.